Hey, welcome back to the Positive Side Podcast. Glad you were tuning in. Obviously, this is the host, Jeremy Todd, and these interviews just keep getting better and better and better. One interesting stat about the Positive Side Podcast, and a lot of people probably don't know this. Well, more on the Facebook page. We got close to 12,000 people on that. So if you haven't liked the page, I'm not sure what you're waiting for. Get over like that bad boy. There's all kinds of motivational quotes and memes and stuff like that. And then all these episodes are also on there. But one of the things I found interesting the other day that was really surprising that I think, and I'm going to probably butcher numbers, but I'll get them close. 68% of the people that have liked the Positive Side podcast page are women. Now, I have a lot of guys on here and we talk about a lot of different topics, but one of the things that I really want to focus on in this episode was just women, motherhood, and just overall being a woman and raising children. And that's a big job. And right now with COVID, it seems to me like, again, I'm just a guy, a dad, I'm doing my thing, but I think women, especially now, are taking on a huge role with not only, raising children, but also being, having a job and really fulfilling two different roles. So today I'm excited. We got a local yokel from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Jennifer Norris Hale is going to be on the show. And we're gonna, like I said, she is a professional and an expert in maternal mental health. And hey, Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Hi, I do my best.
Well, you do a fantastic job. You have a huge job to fill. And I guess one of the big things I want to jump into it is something I just recapped was a little bit about with COVID going on right now and kids being home a lot more. So being a woman and being a mother, how do you juggle? What are some good tips for women in general to juggle their life and stay calm? I guess if that makes any sense. It's a big job. So talk a little bit about that.
I think, and what I say to most people all the time, to most moms, is to just give yourself some grace. I think a lot of times we get caught up in the social media comparison, um, jungle, and we're looking at what our friends are doing and what somebody we don't know is doing and with their kids, and they're doing it so much better than we are. And we just get caught up in that. And I just think you need to give yourself grace as a mom, as give your husband grace or your partner grace, and we just need to kind of share that. That's the first thing. Not to put such pressure on yourself to perform. Nobody's done this before. Nobody's gone through this before. So we're all learning it as we go. Excuse me. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is that just one foot in front of the other every day. We're doing the best for our kids. We are the best for our kids. And just to not compare ourselves to others and do what's best for our family, and know in your heart that you're doing what's best for your family.
Well, I think that's so powerful what you just said there, because it makes so much sense, because sometimes we look for other people to give us the answer. And I've talked about this on this show a billion times, that we have all the answers within ourselves, but we get clouded by so many other decisions or so many other, keeping up with the Joneses and social media. A mother's job, in general, parents' job, but I think more importantly, a mother's job by far is more difficult. And I say this, and I'm sure generation after generation has said that this is the hardest generation to be a parent. And I think it only gets tougher because, again, you add with COVID, you add with social media, you add with bullying and having kids going here and there. They got to be everywhere all the time. There's so many stresses on life and so many things that pull up reasons to be anxious and have that anxiety and even have depression kick in. What would you
Mhm.
say to a mother out there that's really struggling right now, that doesn't know where to turn to, doesn't know where to get answers about these topics? What would you say to her right now?
I would say to just keep going and to keep reaching out. I think sometimes if we reach out to a friend or a family member and maybe they don't give us what we need to hear, we can get deterred, or we don't know where to start. Um, if you have reached out and you haven't gotten the support that you need, just keep going and advocate for yourself. But also, if you don't know where to start, just start somewhere. The hardest thing that you're going to do is ask for help and realize that you need help. And once you actually start to ask, whether that is a friend or a family or a professional, a doctor, anyone, once you actually make that ask for help, you'll be really surprised at how willing people are to come out and support you. And that you don't have to be ashamed to ask for help. We are all struggling right now. And even as moms, I think we're not, we'll probably get into this later, but we're not set up for success all the time. And society doesn't really create that foundation for us. So we think we're supposed to be succeeding, and so we put that pressure on us, and that's not always the case. We don't have the tools. So the first thing that I would say is just to reach out for help, whether that's a friend or family, and just say, I'm struggling. I don't feel like myself. And you'll also be surprised at the same kid that the people are like, me too.
Yeah.
Like, I have been there. I just came from that, or I'm struggling too. And then you can kind of, find your village, find your people.
One of the things I respect most about you, and I talked about this actually on the last podcast. If you haven't checked that out, make sure everybody goes and checks out Danny Bader. But we talked. Oh no, this was on. Never mind. I was on a podcast earlier this morning with Sam Crowley. Love Sam Crowley. Check his podcast out. But one of the things we talked about with people uh, telling their stories about. Let me back up. We talked about hiring a coach, but what we liked about hiring a coach was someone that's actually been through the things that make people successful. So, for me, I talked about my past, filing bankruptcy and struggling through all these different things and struggling with depression, all these things that I struggle with, but I can help people get through because I came out on the other side. And that's what I really respect about you is you talk about these things about having a mother or being a mother and
Mhm.
struggling with some of these anxiety disorders. You actually live this and you talk a little bit about it. And I want you to tell your story with you and your son and really we'll talk about your whole story and what got you out of everything.
Do we have time?
We've got, it's the podcast. We've got all the time in the universe. It's all good.
No. So let's see. So we had mentioned I'm from Fort Wayne. I'm a boomerang resident here. But when I graduated from college, I was like, I gotta go see the world. I need an experience, and I wanted to be in New York. Like that was the epitome of where my career was. I was studying apparel, merchandising at the time, and that's just where I thought I needed to be, was New York. I wanted to be a woman with a career and the cool aunt, and that was it. And so for a long time I was, but at this, as they say, like, uh, God, when we make plans, God laughs. Like that's what
Yeah.
I always have to remind myself, even now. Um, something that I share. But so I was in New York for 5 years, and I, fell in love, and I had my first son. And I never imagined what motherhood would be like in New York. I never imagined what motherhood would be like in general. I had, these ideas in my head. I thought that, my labor was going to be beautiful and wonderful and natural and everything. And I had really no idea. You take classes at the hospital and you can kind of talk to people, but it's just not the same. Um, and so when I had my son, I planned for 9 months for natural birth, ended up having preeclampsia and emergency C-section. And it was extremely traumatic. And again, at the time you don't, and still we don't talk about birth as traumatic. We talk about it as a beautiful thing, but there's women who almost die during childbirth. That's trauma that they're going to carry with them. But now I'm getting on a tangent, but
Okay.
there's trauma related to giving birth. And my trauma was the fact that I had an emergency C-section. It was completely unplanned, not anything I expected. And then I just was not prepared. And there was a night, when I shared my story about a year ago, which is what kind of started all of this, was one of the nurses in my room, um, first night with my son after going through 18 hours of labor and this emergency C-section, and not having my son with me when he was first born. He went to the nursery, and just kind of figuring it all out on my own, and with a supportive partner. But the nurse came in, and my son was crying, and my son was crying, and I thought maybe I should undress him. Maybe he's hot, because this was in July. And she saw what I was doing, and she didn't help me to kind of like undress him to do skin to skin or try to, work on breastfeeding or anything. She called down to the nursery and she said, the mother's not fit to have the baby in the room. And for me, those are like the first that I don't remember. I mean, I remember a lot, but I also don't remember. Those are the first like 5 words that I remember from my entrance into motherhood, was the mother's not fit. you know? And so for months, that would just kind of like play in my head, and I would doubt myself. And I already had to like go through the fact that I didn't understand that it was traumatic at the time. I had to like kind of work through that, and that took a long time. Um, and understand that I wasn't bonding with the baby, and what does that look like? Because so often we think of depression as not getting out of bed, or and I'm sorry if you can hear my kids in the
It's
background.
okay.
But we picture this depression as, not getting out of bed and very like lethargical. I went full speed back into my career. I don't think, and I would be willing to guess that nobody really would have considered me having depression or anxiety. But I think that I managed to hide it pretty well. I managed to live um, without acknowledging it myself, and then for other people to acknowledge it. I didn't want to address it. Um, and I think motherhood does a strange thing. It makes you have to work on yourself and, fight these battles that you never really thought you'd have to do, because you have to overcome a lot as you become a mother and the mother that you want to be. And I never, we can go back to numbers, but 50% of pregnancies are unplanned. And so, especially in my case, I was in New York for a career. Like I used to say, um, I went to New York for a career. If I wanted a family, I would have stayed home.
Yeah,
I used
right,
to say
exactly.
all the time. And so here I am, and it's a beautiful thing, but I have a family now. And that's not, it was just such a paradox of I love being here. I love my job, traveling, everything. But how am I going to be a mom and balance this? And do we have a nanny? So it was just so many unanswered questions. And I didn't, at the end of the day, didn't really have a community of support surrounding me. So this was back in 2010. And, there weren't the Facebook groups that there are now. This was me in Brooklyn with my partner trying to figure it out. And he had his family, but I didn't have anybody there except for coworkers, and nobody understood from that point. So, fast forward, I've had my third son now, and I realized going through all of that and just kind of working on myself and my own depression and anxiety, how important it is for a mother to be educated on what motherhood really looks like, what the transition really feels like. And that's after I had my third son. I thought, well, especially in Indiana, nobody is talking about this. We focus on the beauty of um, motherhood, and it is a beautiful thing.
Sure.
But there are so many realities to motherhood that we don't share on our Facebook feed, you know?
Yeah, no,
So,
I know exactly what you're saying, and you don't see the stories, you don't hear about them, and that's what I'm really so proud of you, and I'm just glad that you're actually speaking about it and talking about it, because there's so many untold stories that are out there. And if you go it get even worse, like there's people, mothers that have children that aren't alive, that have bad, that babies that don't make it through pregnancy, or there are so many stories. And I don't know, where there's a lot of places to get help. And that's a real, again, another reason that you came on, and you've got a company that you started, Mission Motherhood, is that correct?
mhm, yes.
And I want to talk a little bit about that and what you guys are doing to make an impact for women out there. That I guess number one, it's super important that women actually have to ask to get help. It's
Mhm,
it's easy to talk about it. It's easy to not to say. And it's easy to say that I'm really tough and I don't need help. That's one of the things that I had a problem with personally for so long. I can figure it out. But yeah, deep down inside, I'm just dying to talk to somebody, but my ego gets in the way. So talk a little
mhm.
bit about what you guys are doing with Mission Motherhood, and maybe some of the resources, or I guess talk about how you came up with it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, initially it was, one of the foundations for support or reaching out and getting help is just a regular support group. This isn't like a mothers getting together and comparing our stories with each other. This is, I'm really struggling today and I need to know what I can do. So I was really fortunate to kind of partner with the YMCA, and have them acknowledge that, hey, there's not a lot of resources for moms to go to if they're struggling with their mental health. And they open their doors to me. So we're working in the Parkview Y. I have a support group weekly there. And it's drop in. You can come once, you can come for 6 months, whatever it takes for you to get to feel well again and feel like yourself. We also have like an online virtual group of just obviously because of COVID. I've been very fortunate to partner with the group out of Lutheran Hospital. And so initially it was providing support because the number one reason support groups were failing in our community was consistency, and it like they were not consistent, accessibility, so women couldn't get to them. And those were two major reasons I wanted to reach out to the Y and say, you guys have so many various locations in our community. It's all about mind, body, and spirit. This is a perfect fit. So they were more than happy to do that. So we have an in-person and a virtual. Virtual is on Wednesdays. I can share more information on your website.
Yeah.
But that's where it all started. And then as the conversation grew and as I met more mothers and more people, and did more research, I found a great resource out of Santa Fe, New Mexico, which was the organization is called Many Mothers. And Many Mothers is a motherhood mentorship program. So consider it like Big Brothers, Big Sisters is what I usually compare it to, but mothers need mentorship. So in our, world, we've lost that sense of community, motherhood and life in general, but specifically to motherhood. We were never meant to go through this alone. We always had grandmothers. We always had aunts surrounding us, helping us guide through motherhood. What does it look like? Am I supposed to feel this way? And so this concept of mentorship will match a new mom with a community mentor and a community mother, and they will form a relationship. And it's an outside person who can hear their problems, understand where they're coming from, share their stories, personally, and be invested in helping this mother through her transition in motherhood and providing local resources
Yeah.
to her as well that she may not be familiar with. So it's building this sense of community for moms. And again, I go back to it, but we were never meant to do this alone. And I think, I'm relatively new to the maternal mental health world, but that's the continual message that I keep getting. And so often in our own community, our mothers are alone. We don't know where the resources are. And I just think this one simple act of having, matching mothers to help each other out will be extremely impactful in the long run.
Well, sure. The more you talk about it, the more it's up in front of people's faces, the more it's accepted. And I think
Mhm.
that's like anything that, any tough subject to talk about is always extremely tough to talk about until you actually talk about it.
Yeah.
And the more people are involved, the more and more comfortable, the more and more open you are. And what I love seeing about these transition groups is that when you have someone that comes into the group that is absolutely struggling at the worst of the worst of the worst, the more they open up, the more they talk about it, all of a sudden they become a mentor for someone that was in their exact
Mhm.
position before. And I think
Yeah.
that's the powerful thing about about any kind of group, but especially this group with mothers, because there aren't a lot of groups out there. I've never seen a group. I mean, again, obviously I'm not going to see a group because I'm a dude, but I don't see the groups, but I just think it's powerful. And I think it's super, super important. And maybe, you know what? Hey, for fathers, there may be something like that out for fathers. You never know. I thought it'd be interesting when I'm thinking about this and just an idea. I don't know if this makes it, maybe it's already out there, but to have a group for new mothers that that maybe on like a social media like a Facebook or something that maybe have between 20 to 30 mothers in one group that you can log in at any time um, at night, because I think a lot of times at night is when women are up with babies. They're really struggling. They can't wake up their spouse, or if there even is a spouse, to actually talk to them about it because they don't want to worry about it because they got to get to going to work. But man, what an opportunity for them to reach out at 2:45 in the morning saying, "Hey, I'm really struggling right now mentally. I'm crying with the baby. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I think that would be a great opportunity too. And I don't know if something like that exists, but if it doesn't, you got to start that.
Well, we do. We similarly, we have an online Facebook group. So, I mean, we are there 24/7. So if there is a mother who is struggling, it's not, it's, if there is a mother who's struggling, we're certainly there to help her. That's for sure. That's what it's about. It's creating safe spaces for women to come and just kind of, I don't want to say unload because we carry a lot. We carry a lot of our load, but to understand, you can join the group and not have to say anything, but understand and read the stories of other women and know that you're not alone. And I think that's part of, depression and anxiety is just you're not alone in it. And this whole concept of, we're instinctively born to be mothers, like that's not it's
Yeah.
going to be farthest from the truth. And we have to kind of erase that concept from our head because it's not, we need support of others, day or night, 24/7. So we do kind of have a group. It's called Mission Motherhood.
Well, yeah. Check out Mission Motherhood. I mean, obviously you're on all social medias, right? You're on
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram. I mean, I'm sure everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely check her out, check Jennifer out. I mean, it's a powerful group, and there's so many women out there that need this help. So, listen to this podcast and watching this podcast. If you have a family member, a relative, a friend that may be struggling, you don't even have to say anything. Maybe just text them a link. And I think that'd be just powerful enough to say, hey, you may want to look into this to help.
Mhm.
Again, it's just the opportunity. And sometimes when you feel like you're on an island, sometimes mentally you are on an island because you don't ask for help and you don't want anybody's help. And then if you do get help, then sometimes you get defensive. Oh, I don't need any help. I'm fine.
Mhm.
But we got to break down that barrier. We got to break down that ego barrier to allow ourselves to be more open, to allow ourselves to grow and be vulnerable and share this experience because then it's a direct reflection, not only for the mother, but it's the child as well. So it's really affecting, if not 2 lives, 3, 4, 5 lives, that it's extremely important that we reach out to these people.
Yeah.
Um, Jennifer, first of all, I want to thank you for reaching out because I know it's a topic that's not talked about, and you and I connected through Facebook, which is so cool. Uh, but I don't know if you ever listened to any of my other long interviews, but I'm going to go for the questions with you as well. I've got John Maxwell's book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. He goes through the 7 questions. I hope you're ready for them. Have you heard the questions before?
I'm going to be extremely surprised.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Well, good. John Maxwell's book. I'm a big John Maxwell fan. Wrote Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. And question number 1 is, what is the greatest lesson you've ever learned?
Uh, you know, honestly, and it goes back to what we were just talking about, that it's okay to ask for help. I think that's the biggest lesson. You can ask for help and you can take it and you can file it away and do whatever you want with it, but it's okay to ask for help. It's not a weakness. It doesn't show weakness. We're all here to support each other. So that's been my biggest lesson.
Well, that's a big one. I keep going. Saying the word ego. Just keeps coming up. But man, when that ego gets in your way, it can be debilitating. And we got to get past our ego. We got to check the ego at the door and start asking questions and reach out for help. It's so important. Question number 2 is, what are you learning now?
I am learning. That's a good question.
Thank you.
Um, I think right now I'm learning patience. I think this year has been very trying on patience. Um, I can remember on March, mid-March when they announced that schools were going to be closed, and I sat there and I just like saw like my whole world crumble. Like what's going on? What's next now? You know, I just thought there was so much momentum going with other things. How are we ever going to adapt? And here we are. It's December. We've made it. We've made it farther than well. Some paths have been much harder than others, and I just think just to hold on and be patient, and good things will come. And just to have faith is, I guess, my continual lesson. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And when you were mentioned that, all the what goes through my head goes a million miles an hour. But I'm always thinking about mothers out there. You've seen the meme that says, what's next in 2021. We're seeing all the 2020 memes, but everything that we've gone through this year, if we're here, we've made it through all of them, and we're going to get through everything else. It's having that confidence and understanding that we can get through all this together, but we need to be together as a team. And again, like you said, that we just talked about, checking the ego at the door, really reaching out and getting help. But I think the other opportunity, what we need to do as mother, what we need to do, like I'm a mother, what you need to do as mothers is understand that you're a leader. You are powerful. You are a leader of the family, a leader. Your kids look up to you. And being a leader sometimes is admitting when you need help, and
Mhm.
that's a true sign of leadership. So Just wanted to throw that in there. Again, we're talking to Jennifer Norris Hale, founder of Mission Motherhood. And she's in Fort Worth, Indiana. But again, Facebook and social media, you can get it anywhere in the universe. Make sure you reach out to her. Question number 4, Jennifer, are you ready for number 4?
I think so. 4 is my lucky number, so
Well,
hopefully.
then this will be a good one. Question number 4 is, how has failure shaped your life? Well, that's question number 3. Okay, number 3, number 4 is way better. Number 3 is, how has failure shaped your life?
Okay, so this is very interesting because I just had this conversation earlier, and I've been thinking about it a lot this week. So I'm glad you asked.
Perfect.
So when I was in New York, early on, I was very conflicted. Like, should I go home? Like, what would that look like? You know, there were a lot of things that I enjoyed about New York, but there are a lot of things that I struggled with, you know, not having my family and close friends around me was one of them. And then as I grew my career and I kind of got more of an ego surrounding my experience there, I thought if I came home, it would look like a fail. I would have failed. Like, that's what I was telling myself.
Yeah.
Like, people would have considered that, oh, I couldn't make it in New York. And so I don't want to sound too cliche here, but I've been reading the book Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. And at the very beginning of the book, she quotes Theodore Roosevelt quote, which is, "It's not the critic who counts." And I can't say I couldn't say it offhand, but basically it's about, it doesn't matter what the critics say, it's the person that's, you know, in the ring who's doing the fighting. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, when ultimately I did come home, I had given it everything. And I have chills even just thinking about it. I had given everything to make it work. And I didn't fail. Like, I don't want to, again, sound too cliche, but I had dared greatly is really what the end of that quote is. And I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I've come a very long way to acknowledge the fact that that was not a failure. I had done everything that I could to make it work. And so I don't necessarily think that it is a failure unless you just don't try, you know? I think people just keep trying. So that, I guess that was the long-winded into that.
Well, I get it, because, you know, I say on the show all the time, one of my biggest fears is laying on my deathbed saying, I wish I would have. And when you're talking about moving back from New York, I did the same thing. I lived in Chicago for 4 years, and I'm like, peace out, deuces, Fort Wayne, I'm never coming back. And sure enough, here I am coming back. That's when I filed bankruptcy. I was broke as a joke. I had to choose between electric and heat in my house on North Anthony, and we chose electric. So I remember laying on the floor with my buddy Todd Roberts, much love to Todd, and he lived with me just because, you know, he had no place to go and we're buddies. And I remember sleeping on the floor and sleeping around space heaters, and we being so cold. It was the worst. But again, that made me stronger, made me appreciate things. And I did it again. I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, moved to California, and here I am back in Fort Worth, Indiana again. And I'm thinking about moving again. You know, I don't care. I'm getting good at it now. It's all good. But I've learned so much about moving around. I learned so much about different cultures, different types of people and struggles, and what it really means to struggle. You know, forgetting your lunch at home is not struggling. You know, I mean, I know real struggle, but it's made me who I am today, which I wouldn't replace any of those memories for nothing. Question number 4 is, who do you know that I should know?
Ooh, who do I know that you should know? That is a good question. Well, somebody that I just absolutely adore, anywhere or in Fort Wayne?
Anywhere in the universe.
Anywhere in the universe. Somebody who just is on my mind right now, and I just adore her as a mom and as a entrepreneur and as a social activist, is Kristen Giant. So I think she's doing amazing things in the community. I think that they could be replicated in other communities, and I just adore her and her openness to just be who she is, and you can accept it, or you don't have to, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because she's just a wonderfully and beautifully made person, and I adore her.
Now, do you know her personally?
We met, yes, I do know her personally, and we met initially right before COVID started, and then it's been virtual ever since.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I get it. That's pretty much everything now. But you know, hey, when you have an opportunity, I'd really appreciate the introduction. If you can email her, email me, and you know, maybe she'd be a great guest on the show, and I'd love to have her on. So that'd be kind of cool
She
too.
would blow your mind.
Sweet. We'll have to get her on then.
Yeah.
Question number 5, as you can tell, I'm not very good at counting. Question number 5 is, what have you read that I should read?
Mm. Oh goodness, that's a really good question.
Thank you.
Because these are 5 good questions.
Heck yeah.
Um, there's a really good book that I still am reading through, but it's by Anne Voskamp. It's called The Broken Way. It's a
Okay.
Christian book, but it is just a beautifully written story about the importance of community and a woman's journey through. Well, maybe you'd like it.
I love those books. I love any book. I mean, something like that. I'd appreciate that book though, and I think, and this is what I think is, you're talking about checking the ego again. If I could read all dude books all day long, I mean, I would be the biggest loser in the world. I think you have to read different types of books to learn from different perspectives, different personalities, and different
Mhm,
lifestyles. And I think that's so, it's important to learn about different topics. And I think it's extremely important. I was telling someone the other day that I was reading, I read the book Becoming by Michelle Obama.
mhm,
And that was one of the best books I've ever read. It was beautiful. It's beautifully written, and I learned so much about her and her life, and
mhm,
being a young Black kid on the South Side of Chicago, which I have no idea what that would be like. But it was stuff like that that I learned about, and what they and what her family went through, and it was about racism, things like that. It was fascinating. I love that book. But yeah, I mean, definitely. What was the name of the
mhm.
book again?
The Broken Way.
The Broken Way. Okay. Question number 5 is, 5 or 6? But I'm terrible at counting tonight. Let's go number 6 is, what have you done that I should do?
Oh goodness. I would travel your heart out. I love traveling. I love taking my kids on different experiences, but in my career, I traveled a lot. And I think I've traveled to India, Bangladesh, China,
Oh, wow.
all over. And I think that helps bring a different perspective to your own community, you know. So I just really, really, really push people to travel when they can, if they can, just not only to benefit yourself but your own community. So.
Yeah, I went to Ireland last February, right before COVID went full bore, and it was an awesome trip. I went there by myself with no plans and just
Mhm,
stumbled around the country. But my next plan, I think I'm gonna go to, I don't know why, but I'm gonna go to South Korea. I think that would be cool. It'd be so different and
mhm,
so strange and odd to me that I just think, I've heard the people that are just unbelievably nice, very welcoming, and I think
mhm,
that's going to be the next one on my. Ireland was kind of a safe win because everybody spoke English. It was pretty easy. But going to South Korea is way out of my
mhm,
comfort zone, and
mhm.
I think that would be awesome. Jennifer, you ready for the last question?
Yeah, you're gonna learn. Not.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
No, 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 go ahead. What,
yeah.
what, what am I going to learn?
Oh, no, I was gonna say you're gonna learn a lot about the culture, but also a lot about yourself. That's what I love about traveling.
Correct. Yeah, and I'm excited about that too. So should be it should be epic for sure. Jennifer Norris Hale, Mission Motherhood. Last question is, how can I add value to you?
Um, I think you're doing a great job just doing what you're doing with this podcast, and I know you mentioned the book. Um, I think the biggest thing is just keep doing what you're doing and empower people and sharing your story. I mean, I think that's how we've probably connected the most is that we have been able to say like, hey, I really struggled at one point and it wasn't an overnight success. I mean, I have had plenty of struggle within the struggle
Yeah.
to get to where I am. But I think that it's just important to share our story, and so just keep doing what you're doing.
I can do that. I'm not planning on stopping anytime soon. You ever hear the saying, "Game recognized game"? It's almost like that's what going through my head. That's how stupid I am. This is a struggle recognizes a struggle. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So when
Yeah.
you meet people that have been struggling, been through some tough times, they just got a different look to them and different vibe to them, and more open minded, better conversation. So absolutely. I like I said, I appreciate you being on the show, and I want you to tell everybody around the universe, around the galaxy, all the different planets that are listening to this podcast. Tell everybody where they can find the show, or find my show, find you.
We are at Mission Motherhood. It's on Facebook, Mission Motherhood FW for Fort Wayne, www.missionmotherhoodfw.com. We are working on a national launch as well, too, to kind of be a resource on a national scene, just to kind of compile a lot of different content for women and mothers and be a resource. So stay tuned for that. But Facebook, website, Instagram, Mission Motherhood FW. That's where you can find us, or just call and email. I'm available. I want to be as easy to reach as possible.
Well, we're going to share this on the Positive Side Facebook page for sure. And I'll share it on my personal page. Well, I try and do that as much as I can. So for friends, obviously we'll see it there, but connect on the page. Also run up the YouTube. This will be on YouTube as well. That it'll be up. Today is Wednesday, December. What day is today? December 9th. It'll be up tomorrow. It'll be up December 10th. So you can check it on YouTube and share the message, share everything. But get on Facebook and find the Mission Motherhood. I think what she mentioned about going nationally, boy, what an opportunity for a mother struggling in California or Florida to say, hey, this was my story, and I want to get involved and let me know what I can do to help. And what an opportunity to help other mothers around the country. And really, eventually, it's going to be around the world. Like anything with social media, it's not limited to one country. It ends up taking over around the world. And what a powerful, what a powerful name, Mission Motherhood. I mean, that's so cool too. But there's mothers in Russia and China and South Africa. And so no matter where you are in the world, reach out. It would make a big difference for you as well as other mothers in the world. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate all the opportunities for listening to the show. Check us out everywhere. If I can be any help, email me, jeremy@jeremytodd.com. I say it on every single episode. You've got greatness within. Like always, this is the positive side.